Well, it's what happens to you when you start losing at something you think is profoundly important not to lose at. Instead of backing up and taking a check and maybe cutting back on your wishes and your desires, maybe readjusting what you're doing, you double down and triple down, particularly if you happen to be the leader and you are in increasing political trouble. And I think he is, not just this first Knesset round to dissolve and have the elections early, but also the talk in Israel right now is not necessarily as pro Netanyahu as it was, say, 2 or 3 months ago, or at the point where we started, 28 February, that we started this. Well, there was a real tick in euphoria. We finally got the target we want. We finally got Iran in our crosshairs. We finally have got the empire behind us. This is going to be over quick. It wasn't. It isn't. And now they're beginning to realize that. And so I think they're going to turn on Netanyahu viciously before this is over with, and maybe even before the elections.
Larry, when it comes to the phone call between Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump, do you think that the Axis is reporting the reality of what has happened? Because we know that they have reported the same thing during the Biden administration. They said Biden called Benjamin Netanyahu, said, "You're not going to, you're son of," something like that, the F words. But when it comes to Donald Trump, how do you see the way that the war is putting a lot of pressure, by the way, on Donald Trump, the war in the Middle East, because of the reality of the Strait of Hormuz on one side. On the other side, we see how Benjamin Netanyahu and Israelis and the Zionists they have a lot of leverage on the Trump administration. No president in the United States I have ever seen in my lifetime to be that much in favor of Israel or do whatever Benjamin Netanyahu is asking for. Who's Donald Trump today after seeing the reality of what has happened in the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it's not just Donald Trump. Look at what Johnson's doing in the House right now with Section 224, I think it is, of the House version of the National Defense Authorization Act. They're trying actually to eliminate the need for a renewed 10-year Memorandum of Understanding, MOU. That's the way we've essentially every decade guaranteed 3.8, 3.9, whatever billion dollars going to Israel every year, and more when it's needed, as was the case with October 7th and the days afterwards. Now we're going to eliminate, and everyone was trying to figure out, why is Netanyahu talking about this? Why is he talking about he doesn't need the United States anymore? Why is he talking about that there won't be a renewal of the MOU? Well, we now know. This 224 of the House NDAA, under Johnson's supervision right now, is essentially creating a mechanism whereby the United States and Israel will go to a marriage, and we will be married in the security complex. And the people in this marriage, it's not going to be a man-wife marriage. It's going to be a marriage of the U.S. defense industry, that is to say Lockheed Martin, Grumman, Boeing, RTX, and others like that, and their technological development laboratories and everything else about them, and Israel's counterpart. And there's going to be no oversight, or any oversight there is going to be in the Defense Department, and we know how sorry that oversight is. So there won't be any Leahy law. There won't be any reach out and oversight when Israel kills people with our weapon systems that it isn't supposed to be killing, like civilians and women and children, like Josh Paul resigned over. There won't be any need to expose this sort of absolute ignominy in terms of killing civilians all the time, because there won't be any oversight, none whatsoever. This is going to bury Israel into the United States security complex irretrievably, and almost as if we were the same country. In other words, their wildest dream to be the 51st state of the United States and be the most powerful state will be brought to bear and to being by this legislation, at least for security purposes. And dare I say, they don't give a shit about any other purposes. That's what they're working on. And the American people are utterly ignorant of this, that they will have no say anymore over how much of their tax money, how much of their weapons, how much of their technology, how much of their lab work goes directly to Israel. Oh, and how much of Lockheed Martin's and RTX and Grumman's and everything goes directly to Israel and Israel to us. And that's as bad as the other way around, because we know that ICE and ICE's brown shirt status is partly because they've been trained by Israeli police. So we're growing closer, not further apart, when the American people are in high percentages now. The lower the age group, the higher the percentage, saying, break this connection. We do not want this pernicious connection with this state called Israel. Yet Johnson is over there, doing this, creating this new law. And if the Senate doesn't stand up and be counted and do something about this, then we're stuck with this. We're going to have this even when the American people are saying we don't want it. So at a time when we're losing to Iran, Israel is losing to Lebanon, Israel has not defeated Hamas, Israel has not totally obliterated the settlers or the Palestinians in the West Bank. Israel has not done what it wants to do in Damascus and elsewhere in Syria. Israel has not completed its war against Iran. It's, got to do war. At this moment, we're losing too, and we're their big daddy. You can't make a worse scene for this president to be confronting, and you can't have a worse leader to be confronting it. He doesn't know what to do, Nima. He's lost. He's lost, and he's toing and froing and tacking and coming back. He doesn't know what to do. And, I almost want to say I feel sorry for him, but I don't, because I know what kind of a grifter and a jerk he is, because even as he's doing this, he's still making money, big money.
His personal life is just booming.
It's incredible. And I guess you saw the what's her name, the ambassador, who was a part of the, I've lost the names now, Zampoli, the exposure that she gave to the business of Epstein and what they were saying about who introduced Melania to whom. This is another story that's growing. And I don't doubt she's probably telling the truth. What's her name? I got it somewhere. Oh, it's Amanda Umbero. You probably know her.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's an ambassador, I think, now. But she's in that photo with Melania and Trump and Zampoli. They're all there together, grinning at the camera. You can't, Paolo Zampoli, you can't make this stuff up. I still think, that maybe the blackmail, if there is blackmail, is in Mossad's hands rather than Netanyahu's. And they were allowing Netanyahu to use it as he would to blackmail whomever he needed to blackmail, whether it was a U.S. congressman, senator, representative, or whether it was the president of the United States. And now that he's falling out rapidly with the leadership structure in Israel, such as it is, maybe they've pulled it back. And maybe Trump knows that. Were I the leader of Mossad, I think I'd get that word to Trump. We've got it. We might use it on you, but we're not planning to right now. And he can't. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, he'd be caught between a rock and a hard place par excellence. I don't know that for a minute. I'm just surmising. But I do think this Epstein business has a lot more to come out.
We don't know anything about the Epstein.
No, it's all been obfuscated. Pam Bondi, I think, is, kind of letting everybody know that she really didn't have anything to do with it. It was lawyers. It was other people. I couldn't really do anything. I was paralyzed by all these lawyers. You were supposed to be the nation's #1 lawyer. A lot of this is going to come out afterwards, but afterwards it's too late. I read an analysis this morning that someone sent me. I didn't want to read it because I've read so many things like this. I'm getting tired of it, but this was so well written and so good that I read the whole damn thing. And it's a very historically based analysis of how major empires dismember themselves after the moment of demise. That is to say, when they realize finally, and their people begin to lose confidence, whether it's a Roman centurion or whatever. And then it just goes so fast you can't even. And then I picked up the piece and read about Peter Thiel going to Argentina and what he had said about why he was going to Argentina. I mean, you could say this guy's an esoteric South African who writes and reads silly stuff, but it ain't totally true. Some of this stuff makes sense. The disintegration of liberal democracy, the disintegration of the welfare state in particular, and I don't use that in a pejorative sense. I mean a state where a lot of the revenues of the state go to taking care of people who are not Peter Thiel's class. You know what I mean? In other words, they take care of the poor or make a reasonable attempt to. That's gone, he says. That's gone. You can't maintain that. We've proven you can't maintain it. It's physically impossible. You destroy yourself economically. I'm going somewhere else. What did I tell you about these guys jumping ship? They jump ship when the time comes, and they go off to other places and watch the empire disintegrate and pick up the pieces as they can and reestablish themselves as they can. I don't know if you've seen this new look. It's a brilliantly done Apple TV, I think. It's about Coco Chanel and Christian Dior and World War II in Paris. And just before the war, during the Nazi occupation, the Nazis retreating, and then the post-war situation and how Coco Chanel was a collaborator and did this and did that and had real problems reestablishing herself after the war. And Christian Dior was thought to be, but wasn't. He was pretty much a patriot, more interested in his sister and her fate in the Resistance, and she was captured and treated horribly, sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp. He thought she was dead. But anyway, it's a brilliant look into the mentality of things like the Gestapo, the SS, the Nazi hierarchy in general, and into how the French just caved, basically, except for a few, many of whom were communists. The British, for example, quit funding the communists in 1944 because they realized they were the most fierce fighters in France, and by God, the war was going to be over, and they were going to have to fight them, working for Joe Stalin. So they quit funding them, and they kept on, though. They were the fiercest members of the resistance. So we're looking at a world that's falling apart, Nima. It's falling apart, and its principal power for the last 70 plus years is leading the collapse.